Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Gospel Mobilization podcast. Our goal is to equip and encourage mobilizers and missions pastors from around the world. And we want to especially welcome our new listeners today. Glad that you're here. Please don't forget to subscribe or follow the podcast on your favorite podcast app. And if you would give us a 5-star rating or a good review, that's going to help us to reach more listeners. Well, maybe you've got a friend or a colleague that would enjoy today's episode. We'd love it if you would send them the link and recommend it to them. And if you yourself have any suggestions for show topics, please email me. My email address is info@gospelmobilization.org. We love hearing from you. Well, we want to encourage you too to visit our website for all of today's show notes, and please consider donating during our current fundraising campaign to keep resources like this podcast on the air. Our topic today is tips for mobilizing the church, and our guest is Carlos Negron. Carlos joined the Missio Nexus team as Director of Church Engagement in September of 2023. He grew up in Puerto Rico and has a BA in History from the University of Puerto Rico. Carlos's call to missions was cemented while serving in Colombia in the late 90s during the height of the guerrilla movements there. I'm sure he's got some crazy stories. Well, eventually, he, along with his family, would serve the Arab Muslim community in Brooklyn, New York. He later became a field missionary with pioneers in Indonesia. Carlos has served as a missions leader in churches across the U.S., Latin America, and the Caribbean. Most recently, he worked as a teacher and missionary with Pioneers and Mustard Seed International. Carlos lives in Florida with his wife and their 3 children. Carlos, we're blessed to have you today. Thanks for being on the show.
I am blessed to be here with you guys. Thank you so much. Feel honored to be here.
Well, I can't wait till our conversation today. I'm hoping and praying that this is such a blessing to our audience. Tell us a little bit more about your role as Church Engagement Director with Missio Nexus.
Sure. I guess you could say I help churches across the U.S. and Canada connect more deeply with God's mission. You mentioned earlier my official title is Director of Church Engagement for Missio Nexus. I guess I try to build relationship with pastors, ministry leaders, just try to provide resources that really just strengthen their global mission efforts. Just try to help them collaborate with other pastors, mission agency folks, maybe who share a heart for the Great Commission. My role really is about equipping churches, the bride of Christ, right?
Yeah.
To engage the world just more effectively for Christ.
I love that, and it's so needed in our culture today, and I'm sure, as we have listeners around the world, churches around the world too. But you've got these things in the States that you call Nexus Regional Gatherings. I have that title right? Can you?
Depends on the region. We,
Okay,
we, we basically call it the Nexus, maybe a
okay.
Church Mission Leaders Summit, but depending on the region, we give it different names.
Yeah, okay. Well, can you unpack that? Tell me a little bit more about what those are and what the purpose
Sure.
is.
Sure. So the Nexus is a gathering place for church mission leaders. Maybe if they want to learn, if they want to connect, if they want to grow together.
Mm,
We created it as a way to bring people into one space, just in person, so they can share ideas, they can discover helpful resources, maybe collaborate around God's mission. Like I mentioned, the Nexus gathering is different one from the other. If we're here in Central Florida, we call it the Nexus Central Florida. We had one, the Nexus LA. The next one coming up right now is the Nexus. Which one's coming up? The Nexus Blue Ridge in
yeah.
Roanoke, Virginia. So we're kind of covering that area, and we have a couple more coming along the way this year. But basically, each one is different. It depends on the region. What Kentucky, which we have in May coming up, also needs, or what they want is not going to be the same as what the brothers and the sisters in LA
Yeah.
back in November
Sure.
wanted us to bring.
Right.
So we curtail it to the needs of the region according to what they ask for.
Wow.
I guess you can think of it as a hub where pastors, mission pastors, senior pastors, ministry leaders can just meet each other. Uh, Other people who care about global mission, they can learn maybe best practices, they can get practical tools, they can get training, stay encouraged and inspired by meeting others who are like-minded, like-hearted. We call it the Nexus because it's meant to be a connection point, the Nexus,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
place where relationships, ideas, just everything comes together.
I love that. And
Yeah.
we will certainly link to those in the show notes and would highly encourage you, if there's one in your area, to really be a part and to network with others. I love the Missio Nexus tagline about, the Great Commission is too big to do alone, right? We've got to do this together. And
Right.
so partnership and collaboration is just so important as we work to make Jesus famous in all the earth, right?
Absolutely. And I like the second part of that line. Uh, Too big to do alone, too important not to do together,
Yeah,
which is also so real. It's true.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you meet with and talk with pastors around the country. What are some needs and challenges that you're hearing as you engage with ministry leaders and missions pastors and others in your ministry?
Yeah, I have the honor, really it is, and the privilege to talk to pastors. I pinch myself.
Yeah.
I was in a gathering just this last week of uh, church engagement leaders from different agencies. We gathered together 13 different agencies, and we're
Wow.
able to just spend 2 days together and just talking about strategies and what's the best thing for us to do for the kingdom of God to be expanded, not just our organization. And it's interesting that all of them share the same. When we share about what pastors are telling us, it's the same thing that keeps coming over and over again back. And I would say how to engage and mobilize the next generation is right now one of the top things that we hear from
Mm,
pastors. Maybe even how to cast the vision of the importance of global missions, but not to the church, but to the senior leadership. A lot of times, senior pastors or even mission committees, from what we've been hearing, it's hard for the mission pastors or mission leaders in the church to, I guess, portray how important it is for the church to be, the local church to be involved.
mhm.
Another one is how to do short-term mission trips right, how to do it right. I get a lot of people asking, how do we do this right? Discerning, developing, sending those that are called from the congregation. Like, how do you discern somebody in your congregation who's feeling that call, and how do you develop them? How do you help them? How do you send them?
Yeah.
So these are just some of the things, and more. There's so many others that I can go on and on, right?
Sure. Well,
Yeah.
you mentioned one of those about helping maybe the senior leadership of the church to,
Yeah.
really prioritize missions or to love missions.
Mhm.
Can you maybe list a few ideas, a few tips to, um, help senior leaders really kind of
Absolutely.
prioritize world missions?
Absolutely. So I would say, every individual church, I like to say, is kind of on a journey. I believe that there are mile markers on that journey.
Mhm.
Some are just under mile marker one, I would say just awareness. Others are in mile marker 950.
Yeah.
They are sending, they're involved. Missions is a huge priority. Like the budget, there's a big chunk of it for missions. But what we want to do is just help churches get to being mission aware,
Hmm.
and then we want to help a church move from mission aware to mission driven. You
Mm.
know,
Yeah.
just move along that journey where you find yourselves. And one thing that, as a church mission leader, I tell other church mission leaders you shouldn't do is compare yourself to other churches.
Right.
God has you on a journey, you and your church and your local church. Let God lead you into where He wants you to be, and how it wants it to look for you.
Hmm.
But one thing I would do, one of the, I guess you want to call it tips, would be pray for the leadership,
Yeah.
and with the leadership. It's not just a strategy, it's actually what God calls us to do, right?
Yeah. For
Um,
sure.
So when you pray for the leaders, when you pray with the leaders of the church, God softens their hearts. There's unity that's built. Missions is kept God centered. It just helps leaders feel spiritually connected to the mission, whatever mission God has put in your local church to go and do. So prayer is often, I would say, the turning point. That's what you mean. You got to start with that.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is you should start with alignment, not pressure. What I mean by that is, as we know, church leaders and church pastors are juggling a dozen priorities at the same
So
time.
true.
Everything is a priority.
Right.
Mobilizers, yeah, mobilizers gain traction, I believe. And somebody in your church who really wants to, be an advocate for global missions. I think they gain traction when they connect global missions to what the leadership of the church already cares about.
Mm.
Just kind of show the leader how missions is actually going to strengthen discipleship. Connect missions to the
Yeah.
church, maybe the already stated values, the vision of the church, connected to global missions. Demonstrate to the leaders how missions engagement actually energizes the congregation. It doesn't drain it. You know,
Right. Right.
just help them see missions as central and not competing. We're not competing with the time, Pastor. It's just central,
Yeah.
and that's another thing I would say. One thing that I hear also is bring stories, not just numbers and statistics. I believe pastors, elders respond to impact, not just information. Like this is how we can impact. You know, maybe share short, powerful stories. You know of a story of somebody's life who was transformed from missionaries, or maybe someone from your own church.
Hmm.
Share that with them. Highlight maybe how the church um, gave to a project, but that actually produced real fruit, and highlight that. Maybe use testimonies from members of the church who have gone overseas or who went on short-term trips. You know, I think stories really create, I guess, kind of like an emotional ownership.
Hmm.
And a lot of times I think that's like a missing ingredient when you just want to talk about numbers,
Yeah.
which is important, but at the same time, remember, sharing stories there's an impactful thing about that,
For
and
sure.
invite them into the story. Take a pastor on a vision trip, invite an elder to meet some missionaries maybe over dinner, and have them just sit down one night and just share stories, and maybe even help ask a leader to come and help in a short-term trip or something.
Mm.
Just give them a small, maybe, but I mean small but meaningful role
Yeah.
in any missions event. I think when leaders feel missions, they begin to own missions, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I mean, and I would also say build a missions culture, not just a program. That's another
Yes.
thing that comes to mind. Programs can be ignored.
Hmm.
Culture just cannot be ignored. Maybe just provide just regular prayer points for any global needs, or create a rhythm of missions Sundays, or maybe global focus months, or maybe equip a small group of leaders in your own church to talk about missions and just kind of start moving in that journey to the next mile marker. Um, yeah, just things like that come to mind.
Those are great practical ideas.
Yeah.
I was stumped once. I was working with um, in my own church many years ago,
Hmm.
working with the missions committee, and the pastor at the time, I no longer attend there. We moved away, but the pastor said, as we were talking about missions, he said, we're not a sending church. We're more of a supporting church. It's kind of what God's called us to. And I was just, number one, stumped, but also heartbroken. And, uh, because he was really, feeling that this is what the Lord called us to.
Right.
And so it was quite a challenge
Hmm.
to help him discover the joy of also you can do both of these, right? You can be ascending and supporting church.
Right.
And I think the grand narrative of Scripture also is really helpful as we look at the concept of missions in Genesis and Exodus and all throughout. each book of the Bible, how that
Totally.
there's that grand narrative there that our God is a sending
That's
God,
it.
right?
That's it.
So,
That's it.
that can be really, really challenging. And correct me if I'm wrong, because you're the expert here in working with churches, but it seems like it's very relational, and we want to
Mhm.
honor our pastors, and because, like you said, they wear so many hats. I can't imagine. I was a youth pastor for a little bit, so I got maybe a little taste, but I've never been a senior pastor before. So, but really to honor them and in relationship with them,
Right.
it seems
Right.
like this could take a long time, right? We're not talking about, hey, just a few things and flip the switch, right?
Totally. Totally. I think the same way as a lot of people who are involved in global missions have gone or lived overseas, so they have the experience of having to speak a different language. I mean, and you honor the people and the culture that you're in by
Mm,
learning their language, their culture, the way they speak, the way they understand the world.
yeah.
Love your senior leadership and speak their language. Just pastors many times they think of terms like spiritual formation or congregational health, and that's just what God has put that in their hearts, and
Yeah,
that's God given.
right.
How do
And
we steward
important.
the resources? How do we steward resources right? How do we sustain this long term? So a lot of times, instead of saying, hey, we need more missions money, or budget for missions, say, hey, let's invest in missions because it's one of the most effective ways to disciple our people and expand our church's impact. So
Yeah,
just speak their language. They'll get it. They'll understand that, of
love that.
course. And I mean, I say they, but we're all brothers and sisters in the body of Christ.
Yes,
But it's important to honor and love them also that way. Yes,
for
of course.
sure, for sure. Well, we're talking today with Carlos Negron, the Director of Church Engagement with Missio Nexus. And Carlos, let's get down to some maybe difficult things to talk about. A lot of our churches are graying around the country, right? I've heard this from many others. How can churches, and you mentioned this as one of the challenges, really engaging the next generation, Gen Z, and would love to touch on Gen Alpha too. I know that's a passion of yours as well. Um, how can churches better relate to the younger generations in hopes of discipling them to the missions field?
Sure. My background is education. I was a high school teacher for 20 plus years, here and overseas in Indonesia and Brooklyn and different countries and contexts. But young people are young people, and one of the things that just working with young people, for so many years, I have kind of seen is, first of all, there's a shift that's required from old, let's say older models,
Mm-hmm.
to relational, experimental, maybe even purpose-driven approaches,
Mm.
because that resonates even with younger millennials. And yes, we talk about Gen Z, and you mentioned Gen Alpha. It's one of the things I keep telling people. I mean, Gen Alpha are in 10th grade right now.
Yeah,
They're here, you
yeah,
know. So that's one of the things that I would say is lead with purpose, not programs. You know, um, I have seen, I have studied, I have experienced it. Younger generations, they're drawn to causes that matter. I mean, missions is, I guess, inherently purpose driven,
hmm
but churches often present it as a department,
mm.
instead of a calling. So Gen Z wants to give their lives to something bigger than themselves.
Yeah,
Missions is exactly that.
for sure.
If we communicate it well, you know.
hmm
And I think what resonates with the younger generation would be clear, just a compelling vision for God's heart for the nations.
Yes.
They understand that. Real stories of maybe injustice or lostness, transformation, opportunities to make a tangible difference. I think they really hear that, resonate with that, and love to hear about and be a part of that.
hmm
Maybe make discipleship, and you mentioned it earlier, relational, not institutional,
Yeah,
because younger believers respond to people, not structures.
very true.
If they feel known, they'll stay, and if they feel valued, then they'll stay and grow.
Yes.
I guess if they'll grow, they'll go. I
Mm.
should coin that. That's a good
You
one.
should.
They'll go, because they feel like, okay, I have value. They see me, and they feel known. Maybe mentorship, older believers, maybe model a missional life, small, authentic, and that's a really important word for this generation coming up, authentic discipleship, because everything they see around them is fake,
Right. Right.
deep fakes from AI images to everything. Um, I know it's not easy, but intergenerational relationships
Yes.
are really important, and especially those that feel like family, you know? That's really important for the younger generation too, because when you do gather in mission gatherings, the global community, global missions community, you do see a lot of the gray heads or no hair, which is what I hear from pastors. Um, and another thing I think about, give them real responsibility early. You
Yes.
know, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, younger generation, they don't want to just sit on the sidelines
Mhm.
and just watch everybody else do it. Let them lead prayer for unreached people groups. You
Yeah.
know, invite them. When you're planning, not just to go, but when you're planning the short-term trip, invite them to come in and be a part of that. Give them roles whenever there's a missions event. Give them roles in it. Let them help maybe shape the church's mission strategy. That's
Right.
that's a big one.
Yeah.
And of course, experiences. You can use experiences that shape their vision. They learn by doing, not
Mhm.
just hearing. So again, put them in. Get their hands in there and get. They'll love it. I think they'll love it. And this is funny, and my kids make fun of me, but I know they appreciate it. Speak their cultural language, and I'm not talking about trying to be trendy and speak in their
Gen
lingo.
Z slang.
I know, which I try, and my son is like, "No, Dad, just
That's a
no."
stop. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So right now he'll probably be like, "Oh no."
Right.
But this isn't about being trendy. It's about being accessible.
Mm.
You want them to feel like you are accessible to them.
Yeah.
Visual storytelling helps a lot. They're very visual. Everything they do is visual.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, but I used to do it this way. Good. God used that, and He still does. But right now, you need to, like I said, start changing some of the ways that you do things.
Yeah.
Short form content like videos, reels, testimonies. I know their attention span, but you know what? That's what they grew up with their
Right.
whole life.
Yeah.
Um, and be honest with them. Have
Mhm.
conversations about fear, about your calling, about sacrifice. They appreciate that so much more.
Yeah.
They see right through any baloney that you say.
So true. Yeah.
They see right through it. They see right through it. So those are
Wow.
some of the things that go.
I mean, we could spend, the next hour unpacking some of those, but just to highlight a couple that you mentioned, I
I,
love the fact that, we can involve young people on our missions team and missions committees at our churches, right? Like, do you
or,
have a youth representative? I've known churches that have done that, right?
yeah,
And inviting them in and allowing them to speak into, like you
yeah,
mentioned, what you do. And then, the digital era is here, like it or not. Do our churches and mission agencies, are we on Instagram putting out, good quality content, honest, real content? Of course, TikTok is controversial, I know,
yeah.
but, that's where a lot of young people are spending their time. So, what would it look like if our churches and organizations flooded TikTok with Christian and missions content? I mean, we could change the game here, really. And
We,
so,
we sure could. We sure could.
being a light in those dark spaces, I think those are a couple ways that, that you touched on that just to unpack them a little bit, that we could really help our churches relate to the younger generations and discipling them into missions, whatever God's role is for them into missions, right? Because
Right.
there's all sorts of different roles.
Yep. Yep. And pray with them, not just pray for them. You know, prayer is where calling is born, I guess.
Mhm.
Pray for the unreached people groups with them. Pray for missionaries with them. Pray for discernment of calling. You never know what God is doing in somebody's heart. That's one of the main topics that the Nexus event that will be in Roanoke, the Nexus Blue Ridge. One of the topics they asked for, that region, the group of churches that we're going to be meeting with and are invited to come, um, exactly that. How do we unify the generations to work together,
Yeah,
to
love that.
send, so
Love
pray with.
that. Well, let's shift gears a little bit. One of honestly, my favorite events of the year is called the Mission Leaders Conference that Missio Nexus hosts and sponsors. It's over 1,000 mission agency and church leaders that come together to just learn and to network and to grow. Can you talk about where that's going to be this year, when it is, and just encourage people why should they be a part of this?
Absolutely, yeah. It will be in Orlando, Florida this year from September 23rd through the 25th of 2026. I believe it'll be in the same venue as it was this past year. Carib Royale, I believe, is the name of the place. And basically, yeah, the Mission Leaders Conference is our flagship annual gathering. It's just designed to bring together, as you mentioned, mission executives, church mission pastors, mobilizers, global ministry leaders for just let's collaborate, let's learn together, let's have strategic conversations about the future of missions.
Hmm.
It just basically helps leaders stay aligned with just global trends, maybe sharpens their strategies, builds relationships. Again, that's our big, we just want to build relationships, shared learning that strengthen the Great Commission movement. I would say, is the place to be. It's
It
just
is.
it's a natural gathering for mission leadership.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's considered one of the most important annual gatherings for mission executive, church mission pastors, mobilizers, cross-cultural workers,
Hmm.
sending organizations, churches. We
Yeah.
have, I mean, we have plenary sessions, workshops, breakouts, networking, collaboration. We have a church mission leaders track also. We have a theme each year. We feature, there's a theme. Last year was Echo, amplifying the need for global mission evangelism,
Yeah.
and this year is Deep, shaping global disciples. That's the theme this year.
Can't wait. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, I learned so much at these events, uh, and we are able to connect with so many different mission agencies and mobilizer specifically because that's our niche, right? And so it is my favorite event. I can't wait till September. I'm blessed to be part of helping to plan the mobilization track for the event. I mean, I'm just invested. We've been Missio Nexus members for years, and I know there's a lot of agencies around the country that are members of Missio Nexus. Talk a little bit about, we're not trying to be a commercial here, but we want to really provide resources to people to help
Yeah.
you mobilize more missionaries to the nations, right? So, but so talk to us about like organizational membership of Missio Nexus.
Sure.
Why should an agency become a member? What are the benefits of it? How does it help agencies? But also, can individuals and churches
Mhm.
become members as well? And how can
Absolutely.
membership benefit them?
Absolutely. Our president, Ted Esler, likes to say, our superpower is just shared learning.
Mhm.
That's what we want. That's what we want to see, collaboration, etc. So our members do include mission agencies.
Yeah.
We have local churches. We have educational institutions. We
Oh,
have Christian businesses. And of
really?
course, we have, yes, and we have individuals.
Yeah.
And those are all, you have membership for all those types of, I guess, organizations or groups or people.
Hmm.
And basically, one of the main things, of course, is gathering and getting together and networking and getting to know other people. As I hear all the time, like this is my tribe. The
Yes.
people
So
that
true. Yeah.
this is my tribe. So basically, just if you're a member, you have access to high quality learning resources. I mean, we provide learning tools. You just honestly, you won't maybe find anywhere else. I mean, not that we are the only one, but it's just we like to help pastors, mobilizers, missionaries, just church leaders stay sharp, stay informed. We have the Evangelical Missions Quarterly, which is our EMQ, we call it, a
Yeah.
quarterly magazine.
Journal. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, we have that. Leader's Edge is just curated book reviews. If you want to know, okay, what books have come out we have Leader's Edge, which tells you. We have webinars and podcasts, an extensive online media library, research reports. I just have this right here with me. We do publish what's called the Missio Nexus Improve series. So essentials for fundraising, development, and things like that. Just so many different things. Missio Graphics is another one.
Mm.
Just, I mean, I think it matters because churches and individuals stay informed on global trends,
Yeah.
theology, strategy, just without having to go around. And I think this is it, hunting for reliable content. It's just kind of like all there, you know?
Right. Right.
It's just when you network with Missio Nexus, and this is what I've heard when I gather in regions. I said this is great because I know the people in my area, my city, maybe. But I'm in Wisconsin, and I'm meeting these folks from Florida, or I'm in New York, and I'm meeting these folks from California that I would have never met if
Right.
we weren't connected through Missio Nexus. So you would meet leaders that you wouldn't probably meet otherwise. And we just love to encourage collaboration, innovation,
Hmm.
and things like that. We do offer discounts, educational opportunities for several educational institutions, and just I can go on and on. I don't want
A
to.
lot.
Yeah, I mean, bottom line, our membership with Missio Nexus basically helps individuals. I guess it would help an individual grow as a missions leader,
Hmm.
and I guess it would, yeah, you could say it helps churches build healthier, more strategic, and more collaborative missions ministries in their own local church. It's just a way to stay connected, stay informed, stay aligned with what God is doing globally and also, well, locally in your church.
Definitely. And I mean, I really love that aspect because missions changes so fast. And it feels like sometimes, in your own organization, your own church,
Yeah.
or your
Yeah.
own business that you just can't keep up, right? And
Oh, yeah.
so to come together, when it comes to like resolving an issue that your organization is having,
Right.
you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Somebody's been through that before, likely, right? And so these networking opportunities are going to help you, like you mentioned, stay in touch with what's happening in missions globally, but
Hmm.
but networking with these others to help resolve some of the own challenges that your church or organization is having.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's our heart. That's what we want to see. We just want to see, everybody, let's have a kingdom mindset,
Yeah,
not an organizational mindset. That's
right.
just something that we would love to see and pray for.
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. The collaboration is just second to none, and personally and professionally, we love being members of Missio Nexus, and so great to partner with you guys. Great to have you on the podcast today, Carlos. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy day in your ministry as you connect with missions-minded churches all across the globe. It was just great having you on the show.
No, thank you, Dave. It was an honor for me to be just here with you and just talking about God stuff.
Amen, brother. Amen. Well, let's keep in touch, and until next time, let's keep praying for more laborers to work in his harvest fields.